What's up, everybody? Good Monday morning to you, or afternoon if you happen to be listening to it at that time. This is the Aftermath Pod. Phil Perry and I are going to get after it, and we're not going to have a lot of ado. The reason? We are loaded to the gills with work. Phil, of course, has his program tonight, which is called
The Breakdown
with Ted Johnson. They will go over some of the key plays in the 17-16 loss to the Miami Dolphins. But we're going to start this off with a little slant from each of us. I'll go first. Phil, when I look at this game, I could not really care less that the Patriots lost because the problems they had were rectifiable issues, penalties, turnovers. The most important thing to take away from this game is that the most important position in sports is staffed appropriately. Mac Jones had a day to remember, and a day that I didn't think he was necessarily capable of. Some of the stats to me that are most eye-popping are the attempts and the third down conversions. Also, somewhere in there, we have to tuck in the amount of punishment and the hits that he took. But when we look at the grand scheme, Phil, kicking rocks over a loss when the Patriots are notorious for fixing issues, even though it's a divisional loss, even though it's at home, even though it's to a former coach, it's just not worth wringing your hands over. Because to me, the headline, 72-point war declared size, is Mac Jones, the real deal. Phil?
I like that, and I agree with you. My slant, however, is that they can't survive this way. Too many hits.
Mm-hmm.
Just plain and simple, too many hits on the guy that is the real deal, who in his first start as a professional showed that he could continue to be accurate. He could continue to be poised. He could continue to deal with blitzes, understand where they're coming from, identify them, attack them appropriately, even if they weren't always shots down the field. We know that's not how this offense is going to live. But if you're going to be a short throwing offense, which is generally looking like what this might be, Mac Jones averaged 6.5 yards per attempt through the air. So air yards per attempt. That's short in today's NFL. If that's who you're going to be, you can't also get hit and have those hits reach double figures, which I haven't finished my charting of the game just yet, Tom, but he was credited, or the Dolphins were credited with 9 quarterback hits yesterday. It felt like more than that. He was on the ground way too often for a young guy who's not that big. As we've stated in the past, you got to figure that out. So that to me is the slant. It's a good performance from the quarterback. You have to do more to help him. It's not just the execution, the fumbles and the penalties and all that stuff. Obviously, that stuff needs to get cleaned up. You need to clean up the pocket around the quarterback, because if you don't protect him, he's not going to last.
Before we get to our best and worst and the stats that matter, and then hand out some game balls, Phil, I want to follow up on that and say, was this a byproduct of the talent of the Miami Dolphins secondary and their coverage and the fact that guys weren't uncovering quickly, and the aggressiveness of the Brian Flores scheme? Or is this going to be something you just can dial up every week and he's going to get punished?
I don't think it is. I think it's a combination of things. Number one, they lost their right tackle after the first drive of the game, essentially, in Trent Brown. And Justin Curran was ineffective enough that they replaced him with a guy in Yasir Durant, who they just acquired a couple weeks ago. So that's number one. Not great.
I didn't even know Yasir Durant was on the team. I'm looking at the snap counts. I'm like, say Durant. I'm like, Justin Durant? This can't be right. They must have put a Dolphin in here.
Typo.
Yeah. I that was when I tried to take my vacation post-cam.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They signed him. Who the hell is Durant?
We haven't met him. We just Mike Reese asked Bill Belichick about him for the first time. He's been with the team for about a week or so. I don't think anybody thought he was going to actually play. He was going to make the roster, but now he's playing week 1. That's
no
number
love
one.
for Yod the Bod. Anyway, go ahead.
Number 2 is, I think the scheme helps them generate pressure. So it's not going to be like this every week. They either generate pressure just on their own, just by winning or having an unblocked rusher, which they had at times. Or Mac Jones, because of that scheme, understands that he might have to hold on to it a beat longer and take that risk of holding on to the football in the pocket and accept the fact that he's going to take a shot in order to create a play down the field. So I think it's a little bit on the quarterback, a little bit's on the Dolphins scheme, a little bit's on the offensive line. running backs didn't help him out a whole lot in terms of pass protection yesterday. So it was everything. And I'm sure, again, like the fumbles, like the penalties, they'll get some of that cleaned up next week.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because when we talk about Mac Jones' performance, the two plays that stand out, one was egregious, and to the naked eye of any observer wandering past the TV, anyone could say, well, he's not supposed to do that, is he? And that's his first passing attempt. But one of his final passing attempts was to throw in the flat to Jacoby Myers. And social media being what social media is, after my saying that on the move he threw low, and that was kind of on Mac Jones. And I know that Matt Castle agreed with that. And I think Trent Green did as well. Got a lot of pushback. Oh, 2 hands on it. Okay, fine. Yeah. But it's kind of a layup throw. Can't be that far out. So I would say that Mac Jones didn't cost them the game, but that ended up being 3 points instead of perhaps 7. Phil?
4-point play.
Could have been.
All those.
Where was that throw? Was that like at the 18, 20? It was a 30.
It was right inside. It was right inside the red zone. It was a red zone throw. So yeah, it was somewhere in there. But you're right. I agree with you. Should he have caught it? I guess. Should it have been a better throw? Definitely.
Yeah.
That's how I would look at it. Yeah. And so between, that play, Tom, the backwards bounce pass to Jonnu Smith to open the game. I thought there were a handful of throws again where he just took a beat too long to get rid of it, and it wasn't quite as accurate as it could have been. It wasn't a perfect day for him by any means, but he also wasn't the reason they lost. I'll
be fascinated to see the level of punishment that he took. I mean, that's the shame of it, with Bill having 24 new acolytes into his system. It's very easy for him to pass on. This is how we do things. You don't say poop if you have a mouthful. And they are subscribing to that. But it would be nice right now, if I was thinking this today, I'd love to see what Mac Jones is walking like right now, because his body must be one giant bruise. He is not, as I noted at the first minicamp practice, and people flipped out a little bit about my pointing it out. He's not a burly guy. He's not thick. He's not wide. And he needs to fill out. Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo.
It's a little thick.
Well, right. He's thick, but he's matronly. He has to move that thickness up to the chest shoulder area. Right now, he's got some big hips. So we're going to see if that moves around, or if it all just it ends up being shaped like a cube. Right now, he's a little pear shaped. Got to stop that. Be that as it may.
I talked to just quickly. Jason Taylor, Hall of Fame pass rusher for the Dolphins, does some radio work now. He's walking across the Gillette Stadium turf well after the game, and we're about to do some TV. So I just stop him and say, hey, what'd you think? What'd you think of the rookie? His eyes got like dinner plates.
Really?
He took some shots. He was impressed. He was just impressed the way he stood in there, identified blitzes. There were times where the Dolphins would blitz him on one side and he would throw in that direction, understanding that they would be down a defender on that side. It might only go for 5-6 yards. That's how it ended up sort of in that fourth quarter, where they really started to dial up pressure. I thought the Dolphins did. He went 9 for 11 in that fourth quarter, but for only 53 yards. So again, they weren't attacking deep down the field on those plays, but he still was getting it out. He was protecting himself in those moments by getting it out. Really impressed Jason Taylor, who obviously made a living out of frazzling quarterbacks, young or old.
I thought one of his best throws of the day was, forget the James White one. We can all tell how pretty that was, but it was that, and I'm not a big X's and O's guys, but I'm going to say, I think it was an A-gap blitz. And then he just backpedaled and dropped it over it to the vacant area where Jonnu Smith, and that might've been on the last drive or close to the last drive. That was unbelievably impressive, because it wasn't a risky throw. It was the right throw, but he had the confidence to get it out quick, buy time, but not freak.
Was that the one to Myers?
Get it out quick and buy time, Tom. Whatever.
He did buy time. He bought time. He was back.
He bought
right
time.
And threw it off his back foot.
Yeah, he bought time, but it wasn't a technically, oh, that's the way you want to throw it. But he had the confidence that I can throw this backpedaling and still get it to the spot where I know it has to land.
I think that
was it Myers or was it Jonnu?
I think it was
right
Myers.
Down the middle, vacated spot.
I think it was Myers on third down. Yeah, no, I like that throw too. And Capsule pointed that out after the game on Post Game Live. I know. It's one of those moments where, of course, he's not a dynamic athlete. He's not Justin Fields. He's not Trevor Lawrence, but he can do enough to get the ball out. And Unfortunately for him, he had enough time to get the ball out, but ended up taking a bunch of shots. I mean, Tom, really no sacks. I mean, even that they gave the Dolphins credit for a sack on that bounce pass to Jonnu Smith early in the game, but it probably should have been a sack because Smith just basically whiffed on his assignment in pass protection. But outside of that, he wasn't sacked. I mean, that's a pretty good day against a defense that dials up as much pressure as the Dolphins do.
My theory on why he did what he did was that he got confused. He got disoriented as to where he was pointing on the field. I don't think he realized he was pointing backwards. So he saw Jonnu behind him and he's like, oh, well, he must be either in front of me or on the side of me. And then when he realized then he freaked. I really think he got disoriented. It was like a graveyard spiral, like a pilot goes into one of those. He doesn't know what's up and what's down. Right. Moving on.
Twisties. That was the Twisties conversation, right?
He had the Twisties. We got best and worst. We got 3 of each from both of us. I'm going to let Phil go first because I got firstie on the slants. Go ahead, Phil. What's your firstie?
Well, we talked a lot about the quarterback. I'm going to give somebody credit that I have been skewering for the majority of the summer. It's Nelson Aguilar. Guy caught everything he should have caught. Caught a contested ball down the field, 25 yards, middle of the field. He was where he was supposed to be. You know, I'll even give him credit, Tom, for the touchdown catch, which was a bunny, but we've seen him drop bunnies this summer. And he was playing hurt, dealing with an ankle issue, had that left ankle, all sorts of taped up pregame. He gives them something that they need on the outside. Clearly, again, this is not an explosive down the field passing attack, but if they didn't have Nelson Aguilar, they would have been down, I think, 2 of their 3 or 4 20-yard pass plays in the entire game. So you just get even more. What's the word? You get even more dink and dunk. No, you get even more dink and dunk.
Oh, it would have been more dinky and dunky.
More dinky. You get dinkier and dunkier without Nelson Aguilar. So credit to him. Credit to him.
The tight ends are giddy, as are Patriots fans who like to invest in numbers in the 80s, because they caught, I believe it was 8 passes between them. I might have been 7. I think it was 8 passes between them. But I do know this fact that last year the Patriots tight end combined for 18 catches. 3 for Asiasi, 2 for Dalton Keene, and of course 13 for R to the Izzo, who is now on the Texans. But even before that, in Tom Brady's last year, I believe it was 39 catches for tight ends. Obviously a big come down from the days of Gronk or Gronk Nandez or any period of time in which we understood the Patriots and the tight ends were a match made in heaven. So the investment is being used and the investment is worthwhile. Phil.
I was a little disappointed in the tight ends.
Well, I know, I got you. And they were not electric. They didn't take over the game. I thought the Jonnu Smith catch and run could have been a real big play in the game. He stepped out of bounds. I thought the Hunter Henry catch on the 3rd down on the sideline was a big one. But yeah, I get you. It wasn't like, wow, but I'm looking more at the fact of they're back.
They are back, and they were used extensively early. I had them down as using 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends on 12 of the 16 plays that they ran in the first quarter. And I think they ended up using them 36 plays together overall in the game. So they kind of got away from it later. Maybe they felt like they had to pass, or maybe they just liked the matchup better with more receivers on the field. But another good for me. You need another good from me?
Yeah, we want to go 3 best, 3 worst. So sorry to milk it. If you want to just do 2, it's okay. Like I said, he's got the breakdown. Go ahead, give it to me. So he's got a lot of work.
I want to give Jonathan Jones. I want to give Jonathan Jones a good for that interception.
Okay.
I also thought that if he had been given the opportunity to just shadow Jalen Waddle, they might have been better off. What they did yesterday in the secondary, Tom, was essentially they played sides. So you saw Jalen Mills at times lined up across from Devontae Parker, J.C. Jackson at times, Juwan Williams at times on Jalen Waddle, Jalen Mills on Jalen Waddle. I mean, Waddle's such a speed mismatch. It would have made sense to me to just have those guys play their matchup and play them all game long, and they didn't do that. Anyway, Jonathan Jones comes up with a big interception. Really, I think still underrated player in this defense, but he's going to be important to them this year.
So that 30-odd yard catch the Waddle had over Jonathan Jones, not really putting it on him, putting it on the catch and the throw.
Good catch, good throw. I mean, he was in position. It was one of those where, they teach you if you're quote unquote in phase with a guy, if you're running stride for stride with a guy, you should go back and look for the ball. On that one, I don't think he was in phase, which is okay, but you have to play through the catch point. You have to basically, without seeing the ball, play through the guy's arms. I think he was caught sort of betwixt in between because he was out of phase, was ready to play through the guy's arms, and the throw was a little bit underthrown. And so Waddle kind of came back and he wasn't able to shoot his arms through Waddle's arms. It's just one of those.
Yeah.
Castle's talked about this before. It's the Joe Flacco situation where if you underthrow a deep ball like that, it's really difficult for these DBs to play that sometimes.
Yep. So you have to, in the in phase, out of phase, this is something that Mayo taught us. In phase means you're stride for stride. Out of phase means when you are behind the receiver, stacked, as they like to call it sometimes, correct? The receiver's trying to stack the defensive back, meaning get past him, then kind of sidle over so he has him boxed out, but they're both still running. So a little football lingo. James White back in the fight. 6 catches, I think it was overall.
Is that Christopher Walken?
I don't know. All I got to do is open the game book. It's friggin' right here. For crochet. Just open the game book, Tom.
Yeah, 6 catches.
Stop guessing. 6 catches, 49 yards on 7 targets. Obviously, the wheel route was the real nice one. But he only had 42 catches last year in 13 games with Cam. And he was victimized, I think, by ball placement quite a bit in 2020. So he's going to be a factor again. And as the 6 receptions times 16, what's 6 times 16? Either way, he's going to be a 100-yard guy.
96.
100 catch guy. So almost a 100 catch guy. We'll see if that holds up, but be that as it may. Next.
I get one more good.
Yeah.
I want to go on the defensive side here, and I want you to tell me which of these 2 guys I should be picking. It's between Kyle Van Noy and Matt Judon to me. Van Noy ends up with a sack on a play that Judon really blew up because he could not be contained.
Yep.
Van Noy also batted a pass. He had another pressure. I thought both guys weren't amazing all game either. Judon had a bad personal foul penalty on a punt or a kick return. I can't remember which phase of the game it was. It was a kick return, I believe, or a punt return. Because that was followed up by a Shaq Mason block in the back call. Anyway, who are you going between those 2 guys?
I would say Van Noy because of the edge and the attitude he was bringing, and Judon brings plenty of that too. But I would say, and this is my 3rd best too. I actually had Uche, Judon, and Van Noy in the pass rush in general because Uche, just a bizarre performance on that one sack of Tua where he just came off the right edge. So those are my 3 there. 3 worst to me. Phil, it's not so much player as it is situation. You can't start the game and come out of halftime and get undressed defensively. And I look at what George Godsey, yep, that's a former Patriots coach who is now the offensive coordinator down there taking over for Chan Gailey. He was able to pants the Patriots defense in both halves.
Going hurry up, right? Using speed.
RPO.
They use those RPO plays, like
exploit that stuff to the perimeter where they're playing off because they're not playing man.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job of that as well. So good call by you. I don't know if you call that that's a team. I guess the whole team gets a demerit there from you in those situations.
I kind of think it's more a coaching staff. Okay, we have to presume what they're going to do to surprise us and have the quick fix for it. So I don't know. I'll just blame Matt Patricia.
Okay, there you go. I'm going to go Damian Harris. You can't have it, Tom. You can't have it. We're 15 minutes into our pod, 20 minutes into our pod here. That play lost the game. I mean, yep. You're set up for an easy chip shot field goal, if not a touchdown. You're melting the clock. You got to be able to hold on to the football. I know he carried it a lot, 23 carries, 100 yards, 4.3 a carry. It's otherwise a very solid workman-like performance from Harris, but that was a killer.
What should he have done differently on that play, aside from the very obvious not drop it?
Hold it tighter.
Okay.
I mean,
I just didn't think it was a sloppy play. I thought it was a good defensive play. I mean, there's always more you can do, but I just look at that play and go,
that's a tough one though.
It's not a Ridley fumble.
You tell me, because you probably have seen the game broadcast.
It's got to be up here like this
more than I have. But wasn't it just punched out by Eric Rowe or by Xavier Howard? Wasn't it an actual punch, like a Peanut Tillman type of punch?
Yeah, he was extremely close to the ground. Extremely close. I don't know if maybe it was a little, and I do have my football here, getting away to brace as he was almost down instead of falling on it. It just wasn't what I would call, carrying it like a loaf of bread type. What else do you expect? A Cam Newton fumble against Buffalo at the end of last year.
I know.
It just,
but
either way, you can't say, yeah, good fumble though. Can't have that. I'm going to talk about my worst is something that you alluded to up top at the slant punishment. Can't have that level of punishment. So that's more of a worst observation as opposed to a worst player. I didn't like Jake Bailey's game opening touchback either.
Yeah. What happened?
Didn't like it.
Did he pull the wrong club on that one? He needed his 9 and he pulled his 6 by accident.
Caught a flyer. Yeah. Pulled the 6, caught a flyer. I mean, it was sitting up and he should have known that. So you want to press forward maybe and kind of knock that down a little instead of just swinging heavy. But
I got one more for you.
Go ahead.
It's another running back. That group got a D from me on the report card. The only reason it wasn't an F was because of James White. Ramondre Stevenson. Again, you can't have it. I don't even know if he was not down, Tom. I still feel like I haven't seen a great angle of that. Some people have told me he was down for sure. Others go the other way. But you have a fumble.
He wasn't down for sure. His ass was still up for whatever reason. The angle of it, his ass should have been down by then, but it wasn't because he was kind of falling backwards. Okay. So the ass was going to be the last to hit.
So there was that. He also was the guy who was in pass protection on that Landon Roberts hit that ended up being a personal foul penalty on Landon Roberts, which I didn't agree with. I would say
give Ramondre credit for that, because had he not human speed bump, he set up to, I don't know, I'm sure that Ivan Fears will have many teaching points on that, but it was play action. Poor Ramondre had to carry out the block and then get his hands up for an on-charging rhino in Landon Roberts.
So you know what they'll tell guys though, Tom, sometimes there, and I don't know specifically.
Forget the play action.
Forget it. Just if the guy's coming, that's your priority. Matt can carry out the fake handoff if he wants to nobody, but that's number one. You got to make sure that guy's not on the quarterback. He's a large man now, and I know he got thrown. He got cast aside fairly easily there. So, rough day for the rookie.
Better days ahead. Eye-popping stat for me, 11 for 16 on third down. That's an eye-popping stat for me. Phil, you got an eye-popping stat?
All right, here's my eye-popping stat, Tom. Patriots win blitzed. This is according to Pro Football Focus. I'm going to try to draw these up myself, but we're still early in the information gathering process. But Pro Football Focus says the Patriots were 16 of 20 when blitzed by the Dolphins for 138 yards through the air with Mac Jones. 6.9 yards per attempt. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. You're going to be able to win some games that way.
Yeah.
That's 52% of his dropbacks, Tom, more than half of his dropbacks, according to PFF, which charts blitzes as if a guy rushes when he's not expected to rush, right, or if there are 5 or more rushers. So, sometimes, they're calling it a blitz. It was really only a 4-man rush. Be that as it may, over half the time they were drawing something up to get pressure, and the Patriots were able to defeat it. So credit to Mac Jones, credit to the offensive line, really, for picking a lot of those up too.
The definition that we have been given by Gerard Mayo, what the Patriots define a blitz as, is 6. A pressure is 5. A blitz is 6. So if you walked up to Bill Belichick and said, man, they were blitzing like crazy when they brought that extra guy, it's a pressure.
Yeah, you might say, well, they only blitzed us 4 times. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. All right. We could give out game balls, but I think it's redundant to the best and worst. I'm going to close this off with just a quick discussion on something that I was focusing on. This is not a new book. It's another chapter in it. It is the ability of former Bill Belichick coaches, coordinators, or players to not be daunted by the aura of the Patriots and come out with something that helps them win. The overall Bill Belichick offspring or colleagues are 21-17 in Bill Belichick's coaching career. Now that is with the Patriots as head coach of the Browns and the Patriots, and also Tom Coughlin, 5-2, former colleague. But to put a finer point on it, Patriots players or coaches, their records are Brian Flores, 3-2, Mike Vrabel, 2-0, Matt Patricia, 1-0, Josh McDaniels, 1-0, Eric Mangini, 3-5, Romeo Crennel, 1-1, and Bill O'Brien, 1-5, just securing his final win in the Brady pick game down in Houston. So he was 0-5 otherwise, but take Billy O out of it, and they're 11-8. And there's some shit ass teams there that they were playing against. I spit. I was so outraged by it. So between Flores, Vrabel, Patricia, and McDaniels, they are 6-2. 6-2.
What do you think that is? How do you explain that? Because I actually thought what the Dolphins did, and now that I'm watching it, they blitzed a little bit more often than I thought early. It was really late. They started to dial it up more. But I was sitting there as we're watching Mac Jones sort of get hot. I'm like, are they outthinking themselves? Are they, because they know about the preparation at One Patriot Place, they're saying to themselves as the Dolphins, hey, we love to blitz normally, but Bill's going to be ready for that. So let's not blitz quite as much. Let's do 3-man pressures and 4-man pressures on fourth down or on third down. That wasn't like them. And I wondered if they were maybe overthinking it a little bit, because Mac Jones was performing pretty well. Do you think it's that? It's that they are zigging?
Yes.
When Bill's expecting them to zag?
Yeah, because there's so many absolute beatdowns in first meetings. 2018, the Vrabel and Patricia wins. McDaniels win in 2009 obviously wasn't a beatdown, but that was in their first meeting in 2017 in overtime with a rebuilding Denver team. All of these guys in their first years as head coach, I believe.
2010, right?
No, 18. Oh, 2009 for McDaniels.
2009. Okay, right.
And Flores got his head caved in the first meeting, but that was a JV Dolphins team that some people thought might not win until 2025. And they lost 43-0. Antonio Brown scores a touchdown by the end of the year. The Patriots, in a must-have-it game in 2019, lose, sending the Patriots into another game against Mike Vrabel in the playoffs. And he really kind of out-chessed Bill in that game. So Vrabel 2-0 against the Patriots. I don't know what it is. Obviously, it doesn't mean Bill Belichick is not a Hall of Fame coach and the greatest to ever do it. It's just worth noting, worth discussing. Are they undaunted? Do they zig when they think Belichick will zag? It's got to be something. I mean, why is Coughlin so good against? I mean, Coughlin was obviously a huge presence on that Jacksonville Jaguars team that almost upended the Patriots in the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles at quarterback. If he didn't get marooned, they would have won. So fascinating.
That's another eye-popping stat that would have worked in our eye-popping stat category.
Yeah, I know, but I had the 11 for 16 I wanted to hit. Is that what I did?
That was well orchestrated by you.
All right, let's put a bow on this so you can get ready for the breakdown. Go ahead, give it to me. We, of course, have early edition. We're going to be more involved, I think, in all of us over at NBC Sports Boston and some of the NBC 10 programming. So look for us at 6 and 11. And all that stuff's terrific. Quick slants tomorrow with Mego and Kyle Van Noy. And then Wednesday, of course, we'll have the gameplay. Skull Crusher, thanks for all your work. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We have another pod. Sometime we have to stop making Phil pod every friggin' day.
I love it. As long as the people love it, I love it.
Yeah, okay.
Me.